Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time seeing my face, hello. My name is Gabby. Today we are going to be going through my 4 tips for new readers or people who think that they don't like reading. Spoiler alert, you don't hate reading, you just suck at picking books. But that's what we're gonna address today, so no need to worry. But before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know every time I post a YouTube video. Also, go ahead and follow me at Books with Bloom. I did change my handle. If you watched my last video, now it's Books with Bloom. That'll show up on the screen. So make sure you go follow me on there. I post all of my weekly reads and kind of a little bit more of my life, so I put all of that on Instagram, so make sure you go ahead and follow over there. So what we're going to do today is we are going to go through my 4 tips for new readers, and then I'm also going to give a few book recommendations by genre at the end, so make sure that you watch till the end for that. So number 1 is going to be know your genre. How do I discern my genre? Oh, easy. Go through all of the movies and all of the shows that you like, and then usually in like the description portion of the show, it'll tell you what genre it's part of. So it'll say like horror, mystery, romance, comedy, all of those different kinds of things. So that's a really easy way to kind of figure out what it is that you like. I feel like a lot of times when people are new to reading, they just go online and say, oh, so-and-so likes this book, or this famous person recommends this book, and so I'm gonna buy that book. And you don't even like that genre that that person's recommending, so obviously you're not gonna like the book. So then you read the book and you're like, this sucks, I hate reading. No, you don't hate reading. You don't, I promise. It's literally just because you're reading the wrong stuff. So figure out what your genre is, and then once you know your genre, if you want to pick a few books kind of within that genre, or if you want to get a little bit into the nitty-gritty, figure out what tropes you like. So for example, my favorite genre of book is romance, and some of my favorite tropes are second chance romance, It's Always Been You, and enemies to lovers. So what this does is it makes it a little bit easier for me when I go to search for books, because instead of just typing in romance books recommendations into Google, I can type in enemies to lovers romance, or fantasy romance, or, you know, second chance romance, whatever the case may be. So that just makes it a little bit easier to kind of narrow down what your options are going to be, because the more keywords that you have and the more of what you know that you like, what you can kind of figure out what those keywords are, it makes it so much easier to figure out what books you like, because then instead of 100 choices, it gives you like maybe 20. In that same vein, you know what kinds of shows, what kinds of movie you like. If there's a movie or show that you like that's also a book, read that book. Especially if you haven't seen that movie in a little bit of time or that show in a bit, then you kind of know that you like that storyline, and a lot of times the adaptation kind of changes a few things, so it'll still kind of be fresh and new, or especially if you haven't read it in a long time, you kind of forgot some of the details. It'll be nice to kind of give context to all of that. So for example, like I really like the Hunger Games series, so I just reread all of the books, and it was really easy because I didn't have to sit here and think, oh, what book do I want to read? Oh, I just watched this movie, I remember liking it, let me just read all the books. Super easy. So that is my first tip. My second tip is to use your local library. I'm sure you've heard all over the internet, get the Libby app, go to the library, get your library card. Literally, go to the library and get your library card. A lot of the times you don't even have to go to the library. Where I live in Miami, you don't even have to go. There's literally a form online, and it'll give you your digital library card, so you can start borrowing books immediately from their like e-library. And then if you want to go in person and borrow physical copies, obviously they'll set you up with the card, but you already put in all your information ahead of time. So getting a library card is free, and all of the books are free. And that's a really important piece, because sometimes I feel like when you're new to reading, it's like, oh, well, I don't want to spend $13 on a book and then not even like it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like a barrier for a lot of people, because at least for me, it's like, if I read the book and I hated it, I'm like, great, I just wasted $13, like, and I can't return it. You know what I mean? But with the library, you can read it, and if you didn't like it, then okay, no money lost, no nothing. And another misconception that a lot of people have about the library is that they don't have like recent releases, or, I mean, new releases, it's hit or miss. But a lot of people think that they don't have kind of like recent books, and that's not the case at all. Usually libraries will carry those books because they want people to be using the library and using those public services, because if you don't use the library, then it doesn't get good funding. So they want to kind of maintain their their selection so that people will continue to come into the library and to borrow books. On the Libby app, for example, what you can do is you'll put in a request, and then whenever the book comes available, it'll transfer that to your e-library as well. So that's super great. And then a lot of libraries, especially if you go to a college or something, you can put in requests for books. So if you want to read, I don't know, Happy Place by Emily Henry, you can put in a request for that, and then maybe the library will get it, and then they'll let you know as soon as it comes in. So that's a really great way to kind of avoid that money barrier, because at the end of the day, like, reading can be expensive, especially if you start reading and realize that you really like it. It adds up so fast, like $10, $12 here and there adds up super quickly. So that's my second tip. My third tip is don't let the size of a book fool you, or worse, scare you from reading a book. I have a few books right here. We have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Frankenstein, and The Midnight Library. All of these books are the same length. These is 230, these two are 230 pages, give or take. And this is, I believe, 280, so 50 pages more. And they're not at all the same size. These two books are about the same, I guess you would call that the same width, right? And look at the dramatic size difference. So a lot of the times why this is because it's all about the publishing house. So if you can see here, in Frankenstein, the text is super, super small, which is how they can fit so many pages into such a small copy. Where on the other hand, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea not only has pictures, but the font size is huge. So I think a lot of times we tend to get discouraged. You can see a lot of times publishers will put really wide margins. That's the space between the edge of the page and the text. They'll put really wide margins in books, so books will look gigantic. And a lot of times that even discourages me from reading. You also have to keep in mind that not all books are for new readers. So I think a lot of the times we can get kind of carried away, and I don't know, like, don't try reading The Art of War, you know, for your first read. It's like, I don't know, something like 400 pages. And so obviously that's going to take you a really long time to get through. You're going to get discouraged. So especially if you're looking for kind of a quick read that's going to kind of like get the ball rolling and get you back into reading, I would definitely recommend typing in those keywords like fast-paced. A lot of times books that fall into that category of like fast-paced, very quick storyline and plot is going to be young adult books. So I would definitely recommend getting to that, even if you're not in the young adult kind of age bracket anymore. It's a really great way to get into reading, especially for people who are I would even if, especially for people who even are a little bit older, because then those are the movies, the shows that you kind of grew up watching, and so it gives kind of that nostalgia aspect as well. You already know that you like it. Kind of all of these tips kind of meld together in one way or another. So definitely look for that. I would definitely recommend to start a page range probably between, I would say anywhere between like 250 and 350. Once you get into 400, it gets kind of 400 page range. It's kind of hit or miss, because sometimes it's 400 pages of back to back to back things happening in the book, but sometimes it's these really long descriptions of setting, these really long contextual kind of backdrops and story building, and so it's not that easy to get through. So honestly, a lot of the times books that are like 200 pages or less are kind of a letdown. You know, they're a little bit too quick, or they're for pretty young readers. So I would say 250 to 350 is a realistic range for books that you want to be looking for kind of as a new reader. And then fourth and final is do not be afraid to DNF. For those of you that don't know, DNF stands for did not finish, or do not finish. And I'll say personally for me, I used to be the kind of reader that was like, well, I bought it, so I'm gonna read it. Like, and I like wouldn't allow myself to like quit on books. And that's not even the case, because there are thousands of books in the world, and I'm sitting here forcing myself to get through something that I don't like. If I was watching a movie or watching a TV show and it's 30 minutes in and I don't like it, I'm changing it. So why wouldn't I do the same with my books? And this is also kind of circling back to the library card. It makes it a little bit easier because, like I said, you're not worried about wasting money. You're not worried about kind of the investment that you put in the book. So it's very easy to just be like, I didn't like it, next. So don't be afraid to DNF. I would say read probably like 50 to 100 pages depending on how quick the storyline builds. Some books will give you kind of background in the first 50 pages, so it can seem kind of boring, but that's because they're trying to kind of set you up for the plot that's to come, whereas other books will start with the plot and give you the background as it goes. So I'd say 50 to 100 is a realistic range of pages to read before you decide that you really don't like it. But sometimes you can be 25 pages in and just decide that you don't like the author's style of writing, and that's totally okay. So don't be afraid to DNF. So to recap, number 1, know your genre. Number 2, take advantage of your local library. Number 3 is do not be fooled by book size, and definitely don't be scared off by it. And number 4 is don't be afraid to DNF. Now we are going to move into book recommendations. I've divided these by genre. I'm gonna have my trusty iPad so that I can just kind of read these off rapid fire. I am just going to read the genre and then the book title, because I'm gonna make another video kind of going a little bit more in depth into all of these recommendations. So in the thriller genre, I recommend Verity by Colleen Hoover. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about Colleen Hoover. I've never read any of her other books, but Verity is very fast-paced and very engaging. The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley is multiple point of view, so it keeps you pretty engaged as well. And the Paris Apartment actually has multiple kind of twists, or things that you figure out, so that was really good. In the romance genre, I recommend The Fault in Our Stars by John Green and Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. One movie pick and one that I really liked. In the sci-fi genre, I recommend The Martian by Andy Weir and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Both of these are, I would kind of categorize them as comedy sci-fi. They both have to do with outer space. But both of the two authors have a really great sense of humor, and I think that really helps you get through kind of the heavier science parts of the book. In the fantasy genre, I recommend Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, and Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Again, another one that's also a movie, and then one of my personal favorites. And then in the dystopian genre, which I don't know if this is like a traditional book genre, but I find myself reading a lot of books that kind of fit into this category, is the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins. All 3 books are fantastic, and they kind of just build upon each other, which is really great, and it kind of just gets more and more intense. And again, also movie series. And then Divergent by Veronica Roth. Those books are so much better than the movie, so please read those books. Alrighty, so that was all I had for y'all. If you have any other book recommendations for new readers or tips for new readers, or you have any questions for me, feel free to drop them in the comments or DM me on Instagram. It's going to be Books with Bloom, and it's just a W instead of the whole word with. So Books W Bloom on Instagram. So yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!